Hello everyone, my name is Mackenzie and this is my Art 200 final video presentation. And today I'm going to be talking about Andy Warhol's films and explore the mind behind the artist and his influence on the film industry today. As many of you know, Andy Warhol is known as a famous 20th century artist and is arguably the king of pop art. But for those who don't know, Andy Warhol was also a famous filmmaker and one of the most proactive filmmakers of the early 1960s. Throughout his career, he produced nearly 650 films that were mostly shot between 1963 and 1968, and although his films have the reputation to be unconventional and uncanny due to the eccentric images portrayed in his works, they are widely known and critically acclaimed by many art enthusiasts today due to their originality and artistic appeal. Sadly, I don't have the time to talk about all of his films today, but this is just a list of some of his most famous films that are widely recognized today, and it includes Blowjob, Eat, Sleep, Empire, Chelsea Girls, Lonesome Cowboys, and Flesh, and I'm going to go into more detail with some of them right now. Sleep is a 1963 film by Andy Warhol, consisting of footage of John Giorno, who was his rumored love interest at the time, sleeping for 5 hours and 21 minutes. The film opens with a close-up shot of Giorno's stomach, and the image remains on the screen for about 20 minutes and later shows 22 separate close-up shots of Giorno's nude body. Many people may associate Sleep as a boring film to watch, however, it was the complete opposite for Warhol, since he was deeply attracted to the sleeper. So for him, it brought him an extraordinary amount of pleasure, which also reveals a lot about Warhol's character. Sleep was one of Warhol's first experiments with filmmaking, and his first full-length project. And like much of Warhol's work, Sleep left a legacy that remains visible today. The film has since been preserved by the Museum of Modern Art in conjunction with the Andy Warhol Museum, which, believe it or not, attracts many people to those museums each day. Next, I want to talk about his film Empire that is very similar to his film Sleep, which was only made a year later in 1964. Empire is also a black and white silent film that Warhol produced that consists of 8 hours and 5 minutes of slow motion footage of the Empire State Building. Like Sleep, the film does not have a conventional narrative and largely reduces the experience of cinema to the passing of time. Warhol uses the passage from daylight to darkness to act as the film's narrative, while the protagonist is the iconic building. He stated that the purpose of the film was to see time go by, which is pretty easy to identify since the video, or the film, is basically a time lapse. As you can see, Warhol's early structural films were an expression of the once emerging aesthetic of minimalism, which was a popular art movement in the 1950s. Minimalism is characterized by the repetition of very short phrases that change gradually, producing a hypnotic effect, in which he was trying to convey in Sleep and Empire. The Museum of Modern Art refers to Empire as perhaps Warhol's most famous and influential cinematic work, which is interesting since the film is so different from the films he created later on in the late 1960s. Next, I want to talk about one of his more controversial films and how it definitely pushed the boundaries of what was considered appropriate in cinema. Lonesome Cowboys was produced in 1968 and is probably one of the best documented productions of Warhol's films in the 60s. Unlike Sleep and Empire, this film had a set narrative and characters that consist of many homosexual and heterosexual erotic scenes. The plot follows a band of gay cowboy brothers that ride into town and encounter a girl and another young male that ends up breaking up the group of loyal cowboys. The actors improvised most of their lines and often strayed away from the plot entirely, which made the film seem so real and raw. One scene that stood out and received a lot of controversy was a violent rape scene between the male characters and female character, and the scene appeared to be so real that the FBI had to investigate the production of the film, putting Warhol under investigation for about a year. The amount of sexual images portrayed in this film shocked many people since it was very rare to see that in the cinematic world. However, Warhol's use of sexploitation is part of his style in filmmaking, and his content around homosexuality brought attention to the LGBT community. It is clear to see that this film is very different from his first experimental films, Sleep and Empire, but it contains a lot of similarities in the theme and content with the next film we are going to discuss. Flesh was released in 1968 and was a major success, making a turning point in Warhol's films. Although Flesh was produced by Warhol, it is important to note that the film was directed by Paul Morrissey since Warhol was recovering from gunshot wounds during the time. The plot revolves around a man who turns to prostituting due to his need for fast money, and like his film, Lonesome Cowboys, it pushed the boundaries of what was considered acceptable in cinema due to its content of sexploitation. The film contained sexual scenes that once again shocked the public, intended to make them feel uncomfortable. However, a film that contains erotic, raw, and awkward images has become part of Warhol's brand in the film industry. Now I would like to discuss the most common themes that are found among Warhol's films. And the most common themes include sexploitation, psychodrama, and homosexuality. Psychodrama is a style in which psychological elements are the main interest in a play, movie, or novel, and his unique brand of psychodrama created dramatic tension within the works. The themes of sexploitation and homosexuality says a lot about Warhol's character, since he himself is gay and is known to be a very sexual person, and it reveals his attraction towards the human body. His film Lonesome Cowboys, for an example, contained all three of these themes, and is a prime example of all his styles combined. Surprisingly, Warhol's paintings are extremely different compared to his films. Since he is known as the king of pop art, his famous paintings tend to be bright, colorful, and almost cartoon-like, revealing his playful, colorful side, and even a sense of innocence that is not portrayed in his films. There is also a great shift in mediums. He commonly used silkscreen on canvas and is famous for his silkscreen prints. As you can see, his works Marilyn Diptych and Mickey Mouse are both silkscreen on canvas, which are a couple of his most famous pieces today. He was also known to use synthetic polymer paint, which, as you can see, he used for his Campbell soup cans piece. Although there are extreme differences between his paintings and films, there are also a few similarities. For example, a common theme in his art is the transformation of an everyday object and a commonplace into art. His film Empire, for an example, is a work that transforms the image of an iconic building and showcases its true beauty that many people look past. He uses the same technique in his Campbell soup cans piece. He transforms an everyday object into a piece of art that everyone can admire. The repetition of his artworks, Marilyn Diptych and Campbell soup cans, are also similar to his early films. Both the artworks and films repeatedly show the same image, creating a lasting impact that the viewer will always remember. So you're probably asking yourself, why did Warhol shift mediums? Although he would continue to create paintings throughout his career, in 1965 he decided to retire from the medium to concentrate on making experimental films. He wanted to reach his full potential and explore the entire art world and see what it has to offer, and he wanted to become widely known in every aspect of it. Despite years of neglect, these films have attracted widespread interest, and Warhol is now seen as one of the most important filmmakers of the period, and a forefather of independent film. Although Warhol's films are unconventional and uncanny due to the use of sexploitation, psychodrama, and eccentric images portrayed in the films, they are widely known and critically acclaimed by many art enthusiasts due to their originality and artistic appeal. His works have also single-handedly transformed the film industry by showing the public that sexploitation in a film can be normalized and that you can find the beauty of art in any action or object if you look hard enough. Thank you everyone for listening to my presentation today. These are just my references to where I got my information from, and I hope you guys enjoyed learning about Andy Warhol's films and the mind behind the artist.